The greatest gamble you'll never know you took. Let me ask you to imagine something strange. 24 hours before you were born, a genie appears and makes you an offer. You get to design the entire world you're about to enter, the political systems, the economy, the social rules, everything. You can make it any way you want. But there's one condition. You have no idea who you'll be in this world you're designing. You don't know if you'll be born into wealth or poverty. You don't know if you'll be born in North America or sub-Saharan Africa. You don't know if you'll be born with a sharp mind or a slow one, with a powerful body or a frail one. You simply reach into a barrel, pull out a ball, and that ball determines your entire earthly identity. I call this the ovarian lottery. And let me be completely honest with you, I won it. I was born in America in 1930. I was born white, I was born male, and I was born with a brain that happens to be wired perfectly for a capitalist economy. If I had shown up in the 1200s with the same brain, I would have been useless. My talent for allocating capital would have meant nothing. I probably would have ended up as some animal's lunch. So yes, I'm lucky. I acknowledge that completely. But here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to talk about. Luck is just the starting line. It is not the finish line. I have watched people who won the ovarian lottery in every possible way, born rich, born brilliant, born beautiful, and they died miserable. They squandered every advantage they were handed. And I have watched people who were dealt the most terrible cards imaginable. They were born into crushing poverty. They faced discrimination at every turn. They had no connections, no safety net, no head start. And somehow, they built lives of profound meaning and power. What explains the difference? It's not IQ. It's not talent. It's something deeper. It's their operating system. Most human beings drift through existence like boats without rudders. They let the current of society push them around. They let their parents' expectations steer them. They let television advertisers pull them in directions. They have no internal compass, no fixed rules, only reactions. And if you live by reaction, you will always be a slave to whatever happens to be surrounding you. To win at this game we call life, you need a code. You need a set of iron laws that you never break, no matter what the world throws at you. Over my 90-plus years, I've made thousands of investments and generated billions of dollars, but the most important investments I ever made weren't in stocks. They were in principles. Today, I want to share with you the 5 life rules that built whatever character I possess. These aren't hacks. They aren't shortcuts. They're the fundamental algorithms that reprogram a human brain from drifting through existence to actually designing it. Follow them, and I can't promise you'll become a billionaire. But I can promise you this, you will never look back at your life with regret. Let me start with a paradox. We happen to be living in the wealthiest moment in human history. We have more information at our fingertips than any generation that ever lived. We have more technology, more opportunity, more everything. And yet, look around. Are people happier? Are they more successful? No. They're anxious. They're overwhelmed. They're paralyzed. Why? Because they're drowning in more. Most people operate under a false assumption. They believe that to get more out of life, they have to put more into life. They think, if I want to be rich, I need to start 3 businesses simultaneously. If I want to be smart, I need to read 10 different subjects at once. If I want to be popular, I need to say yes to every dinner invitation that comes my way. This is what I call the addition trap, and it is the fastest route to mediocrity that exists. To win in this world, you don't need to add. You need to subtract. Let me tell you about my personal pilot, Mike Flint. Mike flew my private jet for about 10 years, and he was excellent at his job, talented, hardworking, ambitious. But one day, I noticed something in his eyes, frustration. He felt stuck. He felt like he was running on a treadmill, lots of movement, but no forward progress. So we sat down in the cockpit together, and I asked him to do a simple exercise. I said, Mike, take out a piece of paper and write down the 25 things you most want to accomplish in your lifetime. Career goals, family goals, health goals, hobbies, everything. He took his time and produced a list of 25 items. Then I said, okay, now go through that list and circle the 5 that are absolutely non-negotiable. The top 5. The ones that matter more than anything else. This was hard for him. When you look at a list of 25 dreams, they all look good. They all look important. He sweated over it. He crossed things out, put them back, agonized for 30 minutes. But eventually, he had his 5. Now he had 2 lists. List A was the 5 circled items. List B was the 20 items he hadn't circled. I asked him, Mike, what are you going to do with List B? He smiled confidently and said, well, Warren, those top 5 are my primary focus. But the other 20 are still very important to me. So I'll work on them intermittently. When I have a free weekend or some spare energy, I'll chip away at them. They're my secondary priorities. I looked him dead in the eye and said something that changed his life. I said, no, Mike. You've got it completely wrong. Those 20 items you didn't circle? They're not your secondary priorities. They're your enemies. From this moment on, that list is your avoid-at-all-cost list. You must not give them a single second of your attention. You must not give them a single ounce of your energy. You must treat them like toxic waste. Until, and only until, you have completely succeeded with the top 5. Mike was shocked. Most people are shocked when they hear this. Why would I call a perfectly good goal an enemy? Here's the brutal truth about human psychology. Bad ideas are not the problem. You're smart enough to avoid bad ideas. You know that smoking crack is a bad idea. You know that gambling your life savings is a bad idea. The problem is the good ideas. The problem is the project that's pretty interesting. The problem is the business opportunity that's quite promising. The problem is the relationship that's comfortable. These things are dangerous because they're seductive. They're good enough to justify spending your time on them. They're good enough to make you feel productive. But they're not great. And because they're not great, they will never give you the compound returns of a great idea. But they will steal the fuel you need for that great idea. You have a limited amount of energy every single day. You have a limited amount of cognitive bandwidth. If you spread that energy across 25 things, you'll move all of them forward by about an inch. But if you pour all that energy into 5 things, you'll move them forward by a mile. And in the game of life, the person who moves a mile wins. The person who moves an inch is invisible. Think about a magnifying glass. If you move it around, shining sunlight on 20 different spots on a piece of paper, nothing happens. The paper gets a little warm, that's all. But if you hold that magnifying glass perfectly still, if you focus the entire power of the sun onto one single tiny, what happens? Fire. You get fire. That's the power of this principle. It turns you from a flashlight into a laser beam. But I warn you, pruning is painful. When you look at that list of 20 things you have to delete, your ego will scream. Your ego wants to be everything to everyone. Your ego wants to learn French and learn coding and run a marathon and start a podcast and become a great chef, all at the same time. Your ego is terrified of missing out. You have to tell your ego to shut up. You have to accept the pain of elimination. You have to look at a perfectly good project, a project that could make you money, a project that could be fun, and you have to take it behind the barn and shoot it.